It's the kind of film about a gay gentleman that you could watch with your grandma.
Yeah.
And not worry about it being upsetting.
Yeah.
Like, there's nobody squeezing their thumbs through juicy peaches.
No.
In this film.
It's almost like a bridging the gap kind of film.
Exactly. It's a bridging the gap kind of film. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the oral tradition. We got to do the blast off sound because we're blasting off into queer film history. Today, we are going to be reviewing a film that we said that we would on our last podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And so, fuckity-doo, we're gonna do it.
Yeah. Strap your seatbelts on, everybody, because
this
another critical review.
This is a safe drive, so we want to buckle our seatbelts in. We are going to be talking today about the film called About Simon.
Love Simon. About Simon?
Simon.
Loving Philip.
Loving Philip.
As you called it so generously in the last episode.
Love, Simon is a 2018 American romantic teenage comedy drama film directed by Greg Berlanti, written by Isaac Aptaker and Elizabeth Berger, and is based off of a novel called Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. The story is about a boy named Simon Spear. He is a closeted gay boy in high school who is forced to balance his friends, his family, and the blackmailer threatening to out him to the entire school while simultaneously attempting to discover the identity of the anonymous classmate with whom he has fallen in love online.
Beautiful.
That's the story.
That's the story in a nutshell.
Thank you, Wikipedia.
I think a good disclaimer is that neither of us have read Simon versus the Homo Sapien Agenda. And Sapiens Agenda. And I think that's fine because sometimes it's good to just look at a film as a film and not have the other competing information about what the story is supposed to be or could have been.
Even though, to be charitable to this experience, the last film we reviewed that we didn't have the best review of, Call Me By Your Name, you recently read the book and explained that experience just briefly.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but since you segued into it, yes, I will say I had a fantastic experience reading the novel by Andre Ackerman, Call Me By Your Name. I thought it was beautiful. I thought the ending of that book was so much more powerful than the ending of the movie, and yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, to be clear, like I was bawling in a cafe. I was crying my little eyes out at the scene toward the end, spoiler alert, where Elio and Oliver are speaking with each other years and years after their fling that one summer. And I thought it was great. I thought it was really great.
It's got power.
Very direct.
So that goes to show that if we have troubles with this film and you're listening and are like, well, but the book, we empathize because David had an experience like that recently. So back to Love Actually. The question at the very start, before we talk about any nitty gritties, is what is this film?
Have you ever been in love?
I think so.
These last few years, it's almost like I can feel you holding your breath.
I'm supposed to be the one that decides when and where and who knows. That's supposed to be my thing.
Who is it marketed to?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask, Jordy.
What is it? What is its purpose, and why do we think it was made?
So I have a great answer.
Thank you. Go for it.
So my opening statement is the following. Love, Simon is a bland movie. It could be bland because Simon the character is in the closet. Judging by the response to the film, it seems like a lot of people relate to Simon. Just because Jordy and I don't relate to Simon, because we are gay men in our mid-20s, it's not necessarily up to us to decide how 20th Century Fox unveiled its first big-budget gay romantic comedy. Through that lens, I think it's understandable that Simon, or Love, Simon, is as bland as it is because it's a safer choice for a big-budget production.
Yeah, I think that would be it. It's the kind of film about a gay gentleman that you could watch with your grandma.
Yeah.
And not worry about it being upsetting.
Yeah.
Like, there's nobody squeezing their thumbs through juicy peaches.
No.
In this film.
It's almost like a bridging the gap kind of film.
Exactly. It's a bridging the gap kind of film, because I think as popular culture begins to disseminate queer identities, it's valuable. There's a value to having films which perhaps skew towards a more conservative, not even political ideology. Well, we'll get to that. But a more conservative expression of queerness to ease people in. I think this is a good film for people who are in the closet. It's a heartwarming story.
We don't want to take it away from anyone who got something good out of it.
If it's connected with you, if you found it very easy to empathize with these characters in this story, then that's fantastic. The other thing, too, is it's a film that is in the sort of Breakfast Club, John Hughes tone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a film that could be watched by the people who it's about.
Totally. Yeah, I could really easily see it being shown in schools.
That's exactly my sort of thought, is that it could be easily shown in schools as a sort of edutainmentical event. Yeah, like how people, how we're, in grade 10, we watched The Breakfast Club, and we were like, look how all these different types of kids can come together and be friends, just like you can. And that sort of advice.
And that's what I did right after I saw Breakfast Club. I made friends with lots of different people.
Exactly. I realized I was a different kind of person.
Propaganda works. I'm sorry.
True. Anyways, 80s nostalgia is dead.
Ha!
I think I'm falling in love with you.
Wow, thank you. Be right back. Wasn't my proudest moment.
Now that we've got formalities out of the way, make the
I think
podcast for the people who didn't get this
Yeah,
movie.
Exactly. This podcast for you who watched this and thought, who slaps this together in an afternoon? So we talked about conservative leanings, and there were moments where it came across as slightly homophobic, a little bit of tokenistic racial stuff going on. Do you have a thought? Speaking of Whitney Houston and not Call Me by Your Name, Dance with Somebody.
I want to call me by your name. I want to feel the heat of your name. Okay. Yeah. The point I was going to make was both of us had a very strong reaction to a dance number in the movie where Simon is fantasizing about maybe the day he comes out, he'll be loud and proud. In college, that's what it is. There's a dance sequence that you and I thought looked like it could be ripped from a Target commercial where they're all dancing to Whitney Houston's I Want to Dance with Somebody, and they do the whole number,
and they're in
Simon,
they're
in colorful clothes.
Just colorful shirts.
Just colorful shirts.
Like monochromatic, like rainbow colored shirts, but bland
and
normal
jeans.
Shirts and jeans and blue jeans.
Yeah, totally.
Levi's.
Totally.
And they're doing like very, very basic dance number stuff. It kind of reminded me of the fantasy love dance in 500 Days of Summer or 400 Days of Summer. But then
it gets cut short, and Simon says, maybe not that gay. And Jordy and I almost leapt out of our seats because though it made sense for the character, I'll give it that, it was pretty cringy in that the scene that Jordy and I saw wasn't that gay. I have seen, it was it was an episode of The Wiggles. Like, it did not really have gay undertones to it.
It wasn't like a drag queen going out on the side.
No,
like...
people weren't filleting each other in mime or whatever. But like, yeah, it just didn't seem that explicit. So I got what they were going for the character, but like, for that being honestly one of the most gay scenes, except for the kiss at the end for the two of them, I think says a lot about how safe the movie is, about how it represents gay energy.
Or also wanting to avoid, it's a film that intentionally avoids queerness in a film about being gay.
Yeah.
So like, you can separate the two. There are very, straight-laced gay gentlemen out there who are like, I'm gay, but I'm not like that kind of gay. You can meet them on Grindr. Like the one other gay character, Ethan is super sassy and fun and just lit up the film whenever he was there. But yeah, there's no like gay role models. There's no like sequins or glitter or singing or any of that sort of stuff. It's all sort of, and the only time that it does happen, it's made into a joke. And it feels like that scene, the I Want to Dance with Somebody scene, is a fantasy. When he says that, yes, it makes sense for his character, but it also kind of feels like he's winking to the audience who are like, yeah, this is so ridiculous right now, and he needs to make a reference to it, which goes against like the message they're trying to come across with, like when they do stuff like that.
Yeah, you don't teach tolerance by presenting people with something that isn't even accurate. Yeah,
it's a film that's okay with gayness, but is willing to make fun of gender and sexual expression that isn't in the normate. The romance in the end is just two dudes who happen to kiss with each other, which is, again, okay. But I think it would have been nice to have had also being like, and you can be this kind of gay, or you can be this kind of queer person, or this kind of queer person. Like, they're all okay. But maybe that's a message for a different film.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's just like, this film, as much as you and I might want it to be representative of a culture that we're familiar with, I think it still stands, like we've been saying, as a bridging the gap film for the people who are growing up in those small towns where there is no queer culture for them to access. Yeah. And something like a Target dance number is the gayest thing they've seen, which is blah, blah, blah. But like, it happens. And I'll say right away that like, the youth that I grew up in took a really long time to assimilate into gay culture and find gay friends. It was until college that I found gay friends or people within the queer LGBT plus families. Yeah. So in that way, I empathize with where the movie's coming from. It can just feel odd when you and I are so immersed in the culture and just like, oh, whatever. And then we see this film and it's like, it's almost like a culture shock, but in a weird...
From a different point
just from
of
a different end.
Dear Blue, I'm just like you. This was a mistake.
Oh, just one last note. There's also moments of casual racism where this girl... This white girl dresses up as Yoko Ono for Halloween.
Yeah.
John Lennon and Yoko Ono. And we were like, what is this? Also, there's a character named Raj who doesn't have a single line in the whole film, but they just yell at him. He's kind of this other character's lackey, and they're just like, come on, Raj. And it's like the one... I mean, they do have lots of people of color in the film, which is lovely, but I just thought it was weird that
Raj was a bit character.
Yeah, Raj was a bit character. With no lines. And then also she dresses up as...
But yeah, back to the Yoko Ono thing. It's a tricky one, because I follow cosplayers on Twitter, and many of them are not the race of the character that they play, and it's totally fine. And I've seen plenty of people talk about
But
not
Yoko
being
Ono
the
isn't
race.
an anime character.
But Yoko Ono is a real person.
He's a real human being.
And in that sense, I think it's weird. I want to ask people what they think about this because no one in the movie flinches at it. They're just like, we're John and Yoko.
Yeah, but there's no Asian characters in the movie either.
Ooh.
Thank you. But there aren't,
Yeah.
on reflection.
Yeah.
No East Asian characters in the whole film.
Whoops.
Whoopsie doodle. And the fact that it isn't played as sort of cringy or weird, just thought that was a very strange moment in the film. Another example of how, like, this is coming from a culture that isn't as conscious to
Representation?
representation
Or respect?
and respect. So it's a flawed film.
It's a film from another land.
And it also feels like it was slapped together. It feels like it was like, okay, first idea, great, let's keep it. First idea, great, let's keep it.
Yeah.
And
the
they just
cinematography, the editing, a lot of the music cues in the movie are very, like, jarring and bizarre. Talking about, like, cringy scenes. There's a scene specifically where there's a quote-unquote annoying character named Martin. He's the character who is blackmailing Simon regarding his gayness, his sexuality. They're trying to, like, maintain friendships because Martin is telling Simon to, like, do these things for me, introduce me to these people, invite me to this party, take me out to these places because I want to date this girl. I'm really into this girl. And there's one scene where they're in a diner.
Oh, God.
And Martin is talking to this girl, Abby. And it's revealed that Abby has a troubled family life. Her parents have divorced, and she's figuring things out because she's only been in this town making friends with them for the past, like, 2 or 3 months. And Martin says, regarding her last relationship, I think they had an ugly breakup. And Martin says, do me a favor and tell yourself, you deserve a superhero, or something like that. You deserve a Superman. Is that the line?
I deserve a superhero, I think it is.
Right?
Yeah.
I think so.
I deserve a superhero.
If I fuck this up, I'm sorry.
It's
but
something to that
it's something
energy.
to that effect. And Martin pressures the girl to scream it out in the middle of this restaurant. And the music is swelling. And it seems like it's supposed to be this, like, emotional scene where maybe Martin is breaking through to Abby, and Simon is like, oh, he really cares about her, and maybe Abby is learning something. And then there's another, I don't know.
And
so
then
it doesn't go anywhere.
That's the thing about it, is that character is so muddled because they're trying to make him at the same time a villain. And he is the villain, but they're also trying to make him empathetic throughout, but they're not trying to give his villainous actions empathetic, like, reasons. Like, they're not, like, filling in his background and explaining why he acts badly. They just swing back and forth between him doing really nice things and doing these really monstrous, weird things. And it makes no sense. And then it starts becoming like when you're supposed to like him, you don't know when you're supposed to be liking him and when you're supposed to be disliking him. And that scene is, like, the epitome of that, because it seems like he's haranguing this girl he's barely met to stand up on a table in the middle of a restaurant and yell, I deserve a superhero, which, again, he wants her to be his girlfriend. So what's that saying about what he thinks he is?
Yeah,
So
it's so confusing.
And so
And
nonsensical.
I think the ultimate confusing point was toward the sad fourth act of the film, where Simon has been outed. The blackmail has come to fruition
because what's his name, Martin, stops a girl from singing the national anthem. He grabs the mic from her, and again the music swells, and he's like, listen, I just want to say to you, Abby, I love you, I care about you, I want you to be my girlfriend. And again, it's like such a weird pendulum swing, because I think we're supposed to empathize with him.
That scene is played for cringiness, and it is. The film seems like we're not supposed to care about Martin, but you and I, like, on a personal level, we're like, he has a personality.
He had
like,
interest.
He had interests, at least.
He knew about Billy Wilder films, and he, like, knew the history of cabaret, and, like, made references to things.
Yeah, he's a big, like, theater dork.
The main characters, at the very beginning, there's the opening monologue. Simon is like, we're just your regular teens. We go, we get iced lattes, we drive to school, and we go to school, and then we shut our brains off. And that's it. Like, they have no personality.
Yeah.
They have nothing to cling on as human beings, so they just end up seeming like tent poles for the narrative.
Yeah.
Because Simon doesn't, I don't know, Simon is so like, again, he's been so whitewashed to be like the everyman that he doesn't have any like distinct personality of his own.
He likes video editing. He likes being
so.
on his computer. He helps his dad with a photo slideshow.
He helps his dad with a photo slideshow.
He's in the play. Anyway, regarding cringy scenes cringy, confusing scenes, and at the very end, the sad fourth act of the movie, where Simon's been outed. All of his friends are upset with him because he's quote unquote acting selfish, and because of the way he was blackmailed, he was telling friends that they were into each other when they weren't into each other, or that someone had a crush.
To protect himself,
to protect himself, and to try to find a way for Martin to like squeeze in to start some sort of thing with Abby. And we were losing our minds because maybe this is my ignorance to how high school works, but no matter how selfish a person is being, if they come out to you about anything regarding their sexuality, their gender, their identity, anything like that,
you're not going to be like,
how
do it this way? Wait a second. You felt scared to come out, and then that made you do things against your own moral judgment, and now you're coming out, and you want me to just accept you?
Forget that.
And like, I think that definitely people don't accept immediately, but these characters are presented as his best friends forever and ever and ever. And the reason isn't because they're bigots in the narrative. The reason is because he was not being honest with them beforehand and like did these sort of manipulative things. But it wasn't because he wanted to, it's because this Martin guy's a crazy person, and it was clear that Martin was like the mastermind of this whole thing. So I don't know why they weren't just upset with Martin and be like, I think in the real world they would see like, oh, Martin was abusing power over Simon and making Simon do these awful things, and they would feel sorry for Simon because he's both he's
been outed against his will,
he's been blackmailed and bullied by this guy. In the story there's these scenes of them being like, I don't know if I can forgive you for what you did.
This makes you cruel. They call him
cruel. It's wild.
So I can imagine a world where the screenwriters will like hear these criticisms and just be like, well, that's high school. It's a mess. It's real messy. and teens act in ways you don't understand. And I think that's very uncharitable of teens.
Yeah, I think a good I had two examples then. One is 8th grade.
Yeah.
And then the other one is Mean Girls.
Yeah.
Because I think those are two films on kind of opposite ends of the spectrum. Like, Mean Girls is very heightened and comical and clearly like... But those characters are distinct, they're interesting, and...
They're funny intentionally.
And 8th grade is very realistic, grounded. And I think that a Love, Simon is like... trying to have it both ways, where it's
somewhere between
it's
those.
A realistic drama about coming out that also has weird cutscenes to fantasies, which is very much in the Mean Girls mold
style,
but they're not willing to go far enough to either end, so it becomes sort of muddled. And then just story structure wise, the characters don't act in ways that make sense.
And you're Jewish.
Yeah. Which is cool.
And I'm black, too. And gay. Kind of crazy, huh?
We talked about conflict. I think that's something that this film struggles with a lot, of like, what is the conflict of this story? Is the conflict Simon trying to come out or trying to get the confidence to come out? Is the conflict him being blackmailed by this guy? Is the conflict him trying to find the guy that he is interested in? Like, what is the narrative drive?
It's all of those, Jordy. It's a very deep film.
It's all of those and the above. But I think the thing is, all of those are external conflicts. Or the external conflicts are like the ones that are heightened, and we don't really know like what Simon wants.
Yeah.
You know that he's gay and he wants to feel connection, but that's sort of underplayed for all this other narrative stuff. And something else, a thing that I sort of imagined was what this film would have looked like if we saw both perspectives.
Yep.
A little bit more like a film, The Shop Around the Corner, or You've Got Mail, are films where two characters who know each other and don't really like each other, they don't see eye to eye, they're in different social circles, and we see both of their sides and they don't know. And that could be I think there could have been fun drama in that.
Yeah, I think that's a much more empathetic dynamic to see both of these characters, and as audience members get invested in both of them and kind of want them to be happy. And if the film were written in a way where we understand clearly what they want and like what the actual lack for them is besides just coming out, I think it would make it much more satisfying to watch them meet together in that quote unquote climactic Ferris wheel scene.
Another thing too, as well, I realize is it could have been fun too if Simon had told one of his friends early on, and then it becomes almost like a whodunit.
Yeah.
Like a fun little, like, actually dig into the mystery aspect of it, as opposed to just every guy Simon passes by, he's like, could it be this guy? Let's see what it would look like if it was him.
Because it's not like we even know the characters that well that he fantasizes about. All of the people, they're just faces in a crowd. He's like, is it you? Is it you? More than just like these really, really brief interactions that he has with people, and then it just goes off into La La Land. And I get that's how young romance can feel sometimes, where you like interact with someone attractive and you're like, could it be? Yeah. But I just, it's hard for that to feel narratively satisfying as opposed to just like cherry picking little
And the
things.
guy who plays Simon is such a uncharismatic gray pit that it's hard to really empathize with his experience, because he's just so like dull, and he just seems he just seems bored.
Yeah. I'll blame the writing.
I'll blame the writing.
I'll try not to blame the actor, but maybe it's they're not inseparable.
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. So anyways, those were all my thoughts, I think. Yes. Did you have any final? Oh yeah, dynamic lighting. A little. I know it's a comedy.
Yeah.
But a comedy can still have dynamic lighting.
It's true. But scenes turn blue, Jordy. Scenes turned blue in post.
In post.
You're not into Abby, are you? She's cute, but she's just not really my type. Not because she's black. I love black women. Not like, I have a thing for black women. I just love all women.
I can end with just a fire hose of little positive things.
Sure.
That I dug the side characters. Honestly, a lot of the side characters had more presence in the film than a lot of the main characters. Like the theater teacher who's had it. She's fed up. And she also calls out some bullies in the middle of lunch who are making fun of... Yeah, honestly, like the best scene in the movie. We mentioned Ethan, the other out kid. The principal, played by Tony Hale, is super funny, super weird. Yeah. And... lights up his scenes. And the mom and dad I thought were really interesting, and like they were characters, like they had things going on. They're simple characters, but they have something going for them.
Yeah, they had a thing.
And actually props to them, they both had very affecting like acting scenes where they get to be the emotional parent comforting their son
and saying that they accept him.
Totally.
Which is great to see. Again, this film has a sort of informative purpose to it. So it shows the mother accepting, the father accepting, like the whole caboodle.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
Can we go over our alternate titles? Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Let's do that. Let's go over.
So we were looking at the title this morning, and Jordy and I both thought for a second, hey, if you say Love Simon in like a funky accent, you could say it one way, which was Loves I'm in, which is like, you know, falling in love with different people.
The loves I'm in.
Not knowing who is the person for you. So that's a nice read.
And then I read it as Love Seaman.
Yeah, that funky accent where you replace the I noise with the E noise.
Like a French, like
or like a
French,
Spanish person. Love Simon.
Love Seaman. Yeah, so the first part is French, the second part is English. So there you go.
That's really what it's all about in the end, you know? That's the gay experience. Eventually,
love someone and love semen.
You know, you'll get there eventually. If you're a young person listening to this and you're like, I love Simon. And it sounds like we're coming from nowhere. Give it a few years. Maybe you'll come around. Maybe not. So I think in the end, Love Simon has its heart in a decent place. There were just things that we were catching that we wanted to talk about.
Whitney Houston is an idol. And don't dress up as Yoko Ono for Christmas if you're some white lady.
Woo!
These are the takeaways. Besides that, love is love. We hope all young folk out there, if this film inspires them to come out, then that's great.
Yeah.
And continue to watch other films about queer folk, because it's a big world of queerness, and this is just a little gateway into that world. So
slam back.
Slam back.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
From Kiki? Okay. Yeah. You're never alone. And to feel less alone, you can reach out to us at queerfilmpod on Twitter. You can email us at queerfilmpod@gmail.com.
Love
Philip. Oh, love David.
And Jordy.
I hope people have resonated with the new theme music.
Yeah, that they don't miss.
That they don't miss.
I think we should bring it back for this episode.
Only bring it in for critical review.
Yeah, so people know when they say, "Oh boy."
Oh, they're getting sassy.
They're gonna get sassy today, boys.
They're gonna throw out some spice.
That's
funny.